Yeah. No bad. No bad. No bad. Hey, yeah. Pie.
G'day. Let me ask you a quick question. Is it better to burn out or to fade away? Keep your answer with you as we take a deep dive into one of the early internet's favourite, yet most forgotten, Flash cartoons. I want to take you on a journey. A journey back in time, to the days when random, quirky humour was the height of comedy, a time when everything online seemed to reference bacon, narwhals, llama, or pie. Back when kids everywhere were quoting ridiculous lines from Invader Zim on the daily. Yeah, that's right, baby. We're heading back to the early 2000s. The internet was a vastly different place back then, and yet some people still refer to this era as the golden age of the internet. Just to give you young'uns a taste, this was one of the biggest viral sensations of 2004. If you're wondering to yourself, why? Don't worry, I think most of us looking back are as well. So, what makes people remember this period so fondly? And what's changed since then? This was a time before social media, before YouTube, and before what I guess you would call the modern standardization of the internet. Now, every website is neatly laid out with a similar design, usually borrowing heavily from one of a few common templates. But in the early days of the internet, people just designed websites however the hell they wanted. Nobody knew the most efficient website design to keep readers engaged. They probably didn't really care either. A lot of people were just making websites for fun. Not every website was a way to make passive income online. Yeah, I know some people out there still make websites just for fun, or, fan pages for things they're super passionate about, but it feels far less common these days. Shout out to NeoCities for keeping that vibe alive. During this time period, if you wanted to chat to people about a particular topic, you couldn't just join a Facebook group or go on Reddit. You had to go to these specific websites that hosted forums specifically for these topics. Or if you're a little more tech savvy, you might create your own website, often with the help of a long forgotten relic, GeoCities. Man, I wish I still had my Tenacious D GeoCities website I made way back in the day. It was pretty bad, but it was fun to make. Because of the speed of the internet in the early 2000s, video hosting sites were not super common. As for most people, their internet just couldn't handle streaming large videos. So instead, we found our entertainment from meme image hosting sites like funnyjunk.com or I Can Has Cheeseburger. If you're after something a little more substantial, you'd turn to Flash games, or Flash videos on sites like Newgrounds, Miniclip, or StickDeath.com. Now those really were the good old days. Macromedia Flash, the grandfather of digital animation, or as it's more commonly known these days, Adobe Flash. Back in the early 2000s, Flash cartoons and Flash games were everywhere. I'm sure if you grew up around that time, you remember rushing home from school so you could jump on Newgrounds and watch the latest episode of Salad Fingers, or play some Super Smash Flash. Because Flash files are vector-based as opposed to raster-based, they were generally quite small. Most games or animations were only a few megabytes in size, so for most people, they could be loaded up in just a couple of minutes at most. Or, if you're like me and stuck on dial-up for way too many years, more like 20 minutes to half an hour to load up, but it was always worth the wait. Now, I'm no expert, but for those curious, the difference between vector and raster is raster is made up of individual pixels, like a YouTube video or a JPEG file. Because of this, they use up a lot more space calculating the values of every single pixel. Vector files, on the other hand, are made using mathematical equations to calculate the distance between certain points, and then it fills in the gaps with color. It's not storing data for every individual pixel, it's just data for certain points throughout the image. This means the images can be made bigger or smaller without losing any quality, and they also take up far less storage space. Because of its relatively low barrier to entry, along with multiple software options for creating Flash animations and games, Adobe Flash allowed so many artists to create games or animations in an incredibly accessible way. It made it feel like anybody could just throw their hat into the ring and give it a shot. Before its tragic death at the end of 2020, there was a particular artist who took advantage of the accessibility of Flash to try his hand at animation. His catchy, repetitive songs were getting stuck in the heads of millions of people around the world. His name? Jonti Picking. or as he'd sometimes go by, Mr.Weebl. I'm sure a lot of you out there who know this name remember Jonti for his work such as Badgers, Narwhales, or Kenya. I actually remember him for something different, something predating all those cartoons. I remember him for Weebl and Bob. June 6th, 2002, the day the first episode of the everyday happenings of Weebl, and sometimes Weebl's friend Bob, or as it came to be known, Weebl and Bob, was uploaded to weebl.jolt.co.uk. This funny little character here is Weebl Bull. And this here is his best friend, Bob Bobbittson. Weebl and Bob is a series of short 1 to 2 minute cartoons, following the antics of the two titular characters. As I said, they're best friends, but like any good friends do, they love to give each other shit from time to time. These two love pie. Like, really, really love pie. A lot of these episodes revolved around the duo trying to obtain pie. Actually, it kind of reminds me of Ed, Edd and Eddy with their love for jawbreakers and how most of the episodes are just some crazy scheme to get their hands on some. Obviously, not every episode could revolve around trying to get pie. There's 130 episodes, and that would probably get a bit stale. And nobody likes stale pie.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Another staple of the series is parodies of pop culture, such as The Portal, Pimp My Ride, Final Fantasy VII, and CSI Miami parodies. Let's not forget that iconic iPod silhouette ad parody as well. Now that really is a relic of its time. Now, every good show needs a strong cast of side characters, and Weebl and Bob is no exception. I'm not going to go over every single side character, or we'll be here all day. There's quite a few over the lifespan of the series, but I do want to touch on some of my favourites. First up, we have Hairy Lee, a large, hairy egg who's best known for speaking only in grunts, like a caveman, and, of course, for being an expert in hypnotism. Fun fact.
Fun fact. Did you know?
Hairy Lee was known as Baldy Lee back in the 80s prior to a cheese overdose. The funny thing is, he looked exactly the same pre and post cheese incident. We've also got the ultimate power couple, Donkey and Chris the Ninja Pirate. Donkey is, well, a donkey. Although to be honest, she looks more like a rocking horse if you ask me. I guess this is kind of spoilers since right at the start of the show, Donkey is actually Weebl's girlfriend, before leaving him for Chris. But if you're worried about spoilers for a 20-year-old Flash animation about eggs, well, that's fair I guess actually. It's very good and you should all watch it before continuing this video. No, I'm just kidding, don't go. I love you, please stay. I love you. Chris the Ninja Pirate. Now he's an interesting character. He's a mushroom who is part ninja, part pirate, hence the name. His unique characteristics lead to some great one-liners such as "Shiver me shurikens." We absolutely cannot forget to talk about Weebl. No, not Weebl, Weebl. Weebl is a bull who only communicates in snorts, but somehow everyone seems to know exactly what he's saying. He doesn't even get speech bubbles like the other characters. Weebl considers Weebl to be his nemesis, as he always seems to thwart any plans Weebl has of obtaining that sweet, sweet pie.
Somebody had to take the babysitter home. Then I noticed she was sitting on her sweet. I grabbed her sweet. Oh, just thinking about her. I just wish I had her sweet.
In a shocking twist of fate, during the 6th episode of Weebl and Bob, aptly titled Bull, it's revealed that Weebl is actually Weebl's father, hence why Weebl's surname is Bull. But does that mean that Weebl's first name is actually just Wee? Or is he kind of like Willy Wonka? Nobody ever just calls him Willy, because that'd be, well, weird. I don't think anybody ever refers to him as Wee in the show. Anyway, I think I might just be rambling at this point. We should probably move on. Before we move on, I just really quickly want to praise the closing line of this episode when Weebl finds out that Weebl is actually his father. It's pure comedic genius in my eyes. I'll just quickly touch on one more side character, probably one of the most beloved, and then we can move on. The monkey. Yes, that's his actual name. And he's a monkey, surprise, surprise. He was delivered along with some pie-scented cleaner that Weebl ordered in one of the earlier episodes called Cleaner. He's often depicted wearing a large foam hat that says, "We am the best." I really want one of those for myself. Maybe I should get one custom made. The monkey speaks in a very posh British accent, but to juxtapose that fanciness, he's also well known for pooping everywhere and flinging it at people. You take the good with the bad. As you can see, the animation and art style of Weebl and Bob is pretty simplistic. There's a magenta background, some characters made from simplistic shapes. All they really do is wobble side to side. was about it. I think this was a smart decision on Jonti's part. Leaving the art style clean and simplistic made it much easier for him to put out episodes on a regular basis, compared to some of his far more complex series he worked on in later years such as The Moon, which had quite long gaps between each release. The clean art style also helps the series to age more gracefully than some of the other Flash cartoons from that era. A lot of popular Flash cartoons from that time had this sort of amateurish charm about them. Whether it's the janky line work from the older Eddsworld cartoons, or the overabundance of stick figures in series like Joe Romby and Xiao Xiao, they just don't quite hold up like Weebl and Bob. Now that's not to say they aren't great. Please don't get me wrong, I really love all these series that I've mentioned, and I have a huge amount of respect for the creators and all of that work that they put in. Much like the visual design of the series, the sound design definitely helped Weebl and Bob stand out in the massive sea of Flash animations coming out around this time. The first thing you'll probably notice when you start watching is the characters' voices. The majority of the characters have this unusual voice. It's kind of an incoherent mumble. If you try hard enough, you can make out what Weebl's saying most of the time, but Bob is much harder to understand. According to Jonti, he achieved this sound by trying not to use his tongue while he was speaking, as well as altering the speed of the recordings. The incoherent mumbling isn't really an issue though. The whole show utilises speech bubbles to help the audience know exactly what's going on and what's being said. In a very unusual episode called Asshat, a horrific looking Scooby-Doo asks Weebl how they can understand one another when their voices are entirely unintelligible. Weebl says that they can only understand each other thanks to the speech bubbles. This means that they're actually part of the world and not just there for the viewers. But wait, this episode was a special created by Rob Manuel, I hear you yell. Jonti didn't make this episode, it's not even canon, I hear you cry. Scooby-Doo doesn't exist in the world of Weebl and Bob, I hear you shout from the rooftops. Well, I guess I can understand your concern that maybe the speech bubbles being visible isn't actually canon to the story. But there is one more episode I'd like to bring up as evidence. Stains is a rather hilarious episode that starts out with Weebl pleasuring himself while reading a pie recipe book. That has nothing to do with what I'm actually talking about, but I just really wanted an excuse to mention it because it's kind of funny. More to the point though, towards the end of the episode, Weebl is wearing headphones and Bob's trying to shout something at him. Weebl shouts back that he can't hear him over the headphones, and then Bob yells back, "Read the bubbles." So, there you have it. I rest my case. The speech bubbles are real. Now, with that massive tangent out of the way, let's talk about the music. The first thing I noticed when I went back to watch some of the older episodes before starting this script was how good the music is. I don't think I ever really took too much notice of the music as a kid, or if I did, it didn't really stick with me the way some of the other aspects of the series did. Originally, the background music in episodes was handpicked by Jonti, comprising of songs made by some of his favourite electronic music artists, including Mr. Oizo, or Uzo, I don't know how you pronounce that, Mouse on Mars, and Mr. Scruff. At the time, this didn't really seem like an issue, as the episodes were only being uploaded to Jonti's website, and sometimes Newgrounds. Now you have to remember, this was a time before YouTube was the place everyone uploaded everything. In these days, you only had a few options. You either hosted your own website, which could be pretty costly, especially if you're hosting video files, or you uploaded your videos to larger sites like Newgrounds. Neither of these options really ever took copyright into consideration. Back in these days, the internet was kind of like the Wild West. People just did whatever the hell they wanted. Consequences be damned. Things changed though once Jonti started uploading episodes to YouTube in 2008. 15 years ago. By this point in time, Jonti was creating his own music to accompany episodes of Weebl and Bob to avoid any possibility of copyright infringement. The music Jonti made for the series was some really great stuff. By this time, he was already a seasoned musician and it showed.
Do you remember the time when people did stuff? Do you remember the time when people did stuff? Sometimes the people cooked pastry, sometimes they went in a boat. Oh, do you remember the time when people did stuff? Bravo! Thank you. That's a wrap.
You can hear that he still took inspiration from the music that he chose for his early episodes. It didn't feel like a jarring change of musical style once he started making his own. It just kind of felt like a natural progression, like this is how it should have been. Now, if you want to watch early episodes of Weebl and Bob, you have a few options. You can watch the original uploads in all their glory on Newgrounds, or you can head over to YouTube where you can find a couple of compilation videos that Jonti uploaded to his Weebls Stuff channel in 2020. But you keen-eared viewers might notice something about the re-uploads. That's right, the music has been changed. This is obviously due to the copyright system on YouTube and the oldest episodes not using original music. So Jonti had to write new tracks for all of the original episodes. Now, some of you purists might find this a bit disappointing, which I do understand, but you gotta give the man credit. Writing all these new tracks, re-editing and re-uploading all the oldest episodes to YouTube just for us fans is a really cool thing to do. Plus, the new music does sound great and it fits the episodes incredibly well. In saying that, if you do want the absolute original experience, you do have some options. Like I said before, the original uploads are still on Newgrounds, but I'm not confident that every episode is there. You might think another option is the Weebls Stuff website, but sadly, that is not the case. These days, Weebls Stuff is a shell of its former self. Having an unsigned security certificate already shows it's not much of a priority for Mr.Weebl these days. But putting that aside, the other issue is that since the death of Flash, the old episodes are no longer up on the site at all, now having been replaced by their YouTube counterparts where possible. So, that really only leaves one option for you purists who just have to watch every episode in their 360p original copyright infringing glory. We have to head over to the Internet Archive. Lucky for us, some kind people have uploaded all the original episodes for everyone to see. Sure, it's a bit clunky using the Ruffle Flash emulator that the Internet Archive uses, but it's better than nothing. You'll run into the same thing watching on Newgrounds anyway, as these days it's the only way to watch Flash content through a browser. So whether you watch the original episodes or the re-uploads with the new music, you just gotta make sure you pay attention to the background music in Weebl and Bob, because they're quality tunes worthy of some praise if you ask me. Now that we know what Weebl and Bob is, I think it's time to talk a bit about the man behind the masterpiece. Jonti Picking grew up in Doncaster, England. After he finished school, he went on to attend a local art college. While he was there, he was told that he wasn't much of a fine artist. Bit rough if you ask me. After college, he started focusing more on making music. Over time, he garnered a bit of an interest from some record companies, but he was informed that there was not much money in funny songs written about fish. During this time, Jonti was also studying at Barnsley Music College, about 30 minutes from his hometown in Doncaster. Around the time of his study, Jonti also started working on creating music for some television shows. I tried really hard to find the specific shows that he'd worked on, but nowhere I looked seemed to have any information about this time in his career. The only reason I knew about it at all was because it was very briefly mentioned in the Weebl and Bob documentary, which I'll touch on more later. Anyway, after searching for ages, I decided there was only one course of action. I reached out to the man himself in hopes of garnering some information. Quite conveniently, I was already subscribed to his Patreon, so I was able to get a direct way of contacting him through the site's messaging page. I really wasn't sure if I'd hear back. I've reached out to online creators before a few times and often have been left on red, which I do totally understand. Like, when you're a large online figure, you must receive so many messages, it'd be unreasonable to expect every single one to get answered. But lo and behold, a mere 2 days after sending my first message, I saw a notification appear on my phone. A Gmail notification. I only glanced quickly. I saw the words patreon.com and what I thought was the word Weebl. I'd already started to put my phone back in my pocket when my brain registered what it actually read. The man was kind enough to respond to my questions. I excitedly pulled my phone back out to read the message and finally find out what shows he'd made music for. Could it have been something I'd seen before? Or maybe something I liked? Maybe something I watched all the time? I read the message. I did a tiny bit for a UK Asian channel. I think we did music for a quiz show and a news program. Well, that's not super exciting. But I am happy that he took the time to respond to me. So if you do watch this, Jonti, cheers mate. And to be fair, making music for any TV program, regardless of the size of the show, is really awesome. That's something to be proud of, especially at a young age straight out of college. Jonti already had some interest in technology and website development by the early 2000s, having built some websites to host his own music that he was making in his free time. So when he heard about the .com boom taking place, he decided to pack up and move to London to get his foot in the door early. It wasn't long after this that Jonti started messing around with Flash, making funny, short animations, which he said himself were appalling. As far as I know, none of these have ever been put online though. Eventually he came up with the idea for Weebl and Bob, and he very quickly made the first episode, Pie. The idea for Weebl and Bob being obsessed with pie stemmed from Jonti playing online games with voice chat. One day there was just a bunch of people running around in game just going, bye 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 bye. Oh man, those were the good old days, weren't they? Less children shouting really offensive, awful slurs. More children just spouting random crap because they think it's funny. As soon as he finished the first episode, he uploaded it to his website and began working on more episodes. Over the next 4 days, he created and uploaded 3 more episodes. It didn't take long for the well of ideas to start drying up though. Jonti realised he was going to need some help coming up with ideas. Chris Vick, more commonly known as Skoo, started out as a big fan of Weebl and Bob. He spent a lot of his time posting on the website's forum. He enjoyed being a part of the community. One day, Jonti posted on the forums in hopes of finding someone who could help with ideas and possibly some simple animation. Skoo quickly jumped at the chance. Skoo says he had never really written anything before this, but he came up with a quick script idea that he was proud of and he sent it through to Jonti. Jonti did like the idea, but he said he wasn't going to use it. Soon after, Jonti reached out again on the forums looking for more ideas. Skoo sent in another idea for an episode. Jonti decided to go ahead with this idea, and he made the episode. And since that day, they've collaborated on almost every episode of the series. In late September 2002, the team started work on a series of episodes called Bob's Week in France. It was intended to be a miniseries that released 1 episode a day for a week, following Bob's antics while holidaying abroad in France. However, this turned out to be a lot more work than the duo was expecting, and after putting out 4 episodes of the series, Jonti asked Skoo to slap together a quick, short episode as some filler. That way, they could still get something out without sacrificing the quality of the next Week in France episode. This quickly thrown together video called Penguins would be the first of the Skoo special episodes. These videos are shorts, set on an orange background as opposed to the standard purple, and the animation is very crude. The episodes are explained in the Weebl and Bob universe as being created by Bob himself, and at the end of each episode, he'll show up on screen saying, "I made this!" Something I could still hear perfectly in my head years after having watched any of the episodes. For some reason, the way he says it just stuck in my head, like forever. My favourite of the Skoo shorts is the Final Fantasy VII parody. I know, I actually haven't played the game, so it doesn't really make sense for this to be my favourite, but I feel like it can be applied to any, turn-based strategy game, and it's still just as funny, so I'm not going to try to describe the whole thing to you, because what's the point? It's less than a minute long, I won't do the comedy justice, just go watch it. After this though, don't go anywhere. Wait until this is done. Please? Skoo shorts ended up being made infrequently throughout the years whenever the team needed to get an episode out quicker than they'd be able to produce a standard Weebl and Bob episode. 11 were produced in total, with the last one being episode 124, Colds. Some people might argue that there's actually 12 if you count episode 61, Space Mushrooms, but even though it's a short cartoon made by Skoo, since it doesn't have that typical orange background and the white crudely drawn characters, I wouldn't really count it. It doesn't even end with the iconic, "I made this!" Interestingly, in 2002, Jonti signed a deal with MTV UK, giving them the rights to air episodes of Weebl and Bob on their network. However, MTV wanted to play things safe. They feared potential lawsuits by Hasbro due to their long-running toy line called Weebls. So to combat this potential legal issue, on any MTV associated media, the name of the show was changed to Wobble and Bob. However, the actual episodes still refer to the main character as Weebl. Come to think of it, the changes in background music were probably made for the MTV episodes, not actually for, uploading to YouTube. This happened well before then. It definitely would have helped having non-copyright music already written for the episodes when Jonti was ready to upload to YouTube, but I don't think that was the sole reason after all. There are actually a few other small changes made to the episodes that aired on MTV that I picked up on during my rewatch. In episode 5, entitled Angry, Bob's son Angry Paul drinks from a glowing bottle of juice labelled as Sunny Delightful. I remember very vividly in the original version, Weebl throws him the bottle and says, "Fine, have some Sunny D." Then, after Paul takes a swig, he goes, Sunny D, an iconic line in my childhood brain. However, in the MTV Safe version, Sunny D is swapped out for Orange Drink, and it just doesn't have the same ring to it. However, funnily enough, the label still just says Sunny Delightful. I guess maybe that would have been too much hassle to alter that though. There's almost no information online about this deal with MTV that I was able to find. Regarding how it came about, how long it lasted, nothing. But as you can see from this screenshot, from an old post on the off-topic board of talkbase.com, thanks to 72Beetle here, we can see that the deal had to have been made prior to August 19th, 2002. Thanks 72Beetle. Man, I could spend so much time talking about forums. I used to spend way too much free time on the Ultimate Guitar forums back in the day. There was one called The Pit. It was like their random board. It was great. I don't know how much it actually holds up, but back then I thought it was funny. That's probably a topic for another day though. Now, if you'll recall, earlier in the video I told you that I'd reached out to Jonti to try and get more information on a couple of things. This was the other thing that I'd reached out to ask about. And really, this is the main reason that I did decide to send the message. Knowing what TV shows he made music for was cool and a bonus, but I just could not stop thinking about this MTV deal. How the hell did this happen? Nowadays, it doesn't seem so crazy, with shows on Adult Swim like Smiling Friends being created by online personalities, or our own Aussie local legend Jared Wright, creator of the iconic Big Les show, getting the opportunity to work with Comedy Central to make The Mike Nolan Show. But back in 2002, it was unheard of for someone to be making web animations and then get a chance to showcase them on actual television. So, I asked the question. MTV just phoned me at my job. I worked as a web developer. After calling around everyone else involved in the site, by the time they actually called me, 3 people had already given me a heads up that something crazy was about to happen. So, I quit my job to go make cartoons. Seriously, can you imagine you're just at your day job, coding away like any other day, and you get that phone call? That is a seriously life-changing phone call to just get on a random work day. I would love to know who at MTV made that decision. Like, was there just a random worker who was a massive fan? Was it one of the higher-ups? Are they a huge Weebl and Bob fan? I mean, we'll probably never know. Probably never find out. But I will always wonder. Not only did Weebl and Bob get airtime on MTV, but late in 2004, a DVD was produced containing the first year's worth of episodes, as well as director's commentary, 5 MTV exclusive episodes, 1 DVD exclusive episode, and a 10-minute documentary narrated by the UK actor Brian Blessed.
Hello, I'm Brian Blessed. Welcome to the documentary that is about Weebl and Bob.
Who was probably best known for playing Prince Fulton in the iconic 1980s film Flash Gordon. Yes, I had to Google it. I don't actually know who Brian Blessed is. I've never seen Flash Gordon. For many years, this DVD was considered to be lost media, as it had long since been out of print and there was no traces of it uploaded to the internet. That is, until September of 2016, the MTV exclusive episode titled Trailer was uploaded to YouTube. Then in February of 2019, the rest of the exclusive episodes were uploaded to YouTube as well. Obviously, I could not handle the idea of making this video without having seen the DVD for myself, and so began the extensive hunt for a copy of the DVD I could purchase for myself. Firstly, I tried the obvious thing, searching Google for Weebl and Bob DVD. Lo and behold, the second link was an Amazon listing for the DVD. Well, that was a lot easier than I was expecting. Maybe even a little bit anticlimactic. So anyway, here is the elusive Weebl and Bob DVD in all its glory. It actually came with some extra goodies. I don't know how I'm going to show you holding this mic, but give me a minute. Another interesting deal to come out during the lifespan of Weebl and Bob was the collaboration with Cadbury to make episodes featuring Cadbury cream eggs. You heard that right. Somehow, this Flash cartoon not only got an MTV deal, but also a deal to make episodes featuring sentient Cadbury cream eggs. Starting in January of 2008, 3 episodes were uploaded to Weebls Stuff, the first being Goo Fiction, a parody of Pulp Fiction, then Raiders, a Raiders of the Lost Ark parody, and last was Ghoulian, an Alien parody. After those 3 episodes, things went back to normal for the rest of the year. No more Cadbury episodes were uploaded until February of 2009, when they started up again. First was Wizard of Goo, Goo Busters, Goo Shine, Goo in the City, and Armageddon. I feel like most of those titles are pretty self-explanatory, except for maybe Goo Shine. But for those of you who are unsure, the films being parodied in this series were Wizard of Oz, Ghostbuster, Sunshine, Sex and the City, and Armageddon. Personally, I'd never heard of Sunshine before I started making this video and I had to look it up. Seems like a bit of an obscure movie to make a parody of, but I could be wrong. Tell me if you know about it. Let me know if you loved it. Maybe it was huge and I'm just ignorant. For the next year and a half, people may have been thinking that this was the end of the Goovies, a term that was coined for the Cadbury Cream Egg series. They were proven wrong in early 2011 though. 6 more Goovies came out over the span of 4 months. Eggvatar, Goocher, Egacy, Insection, Bob Pilgrim, and the Bleg Spawn. Man, that's a good title. So, you're probably wondering, I know I was, how did this deal with Cadbury happen? Was it the same as the MTV deal? Did Cadbury reach out to him? Or did he reach out to them? I was curious for a long time until I came across this old archived interview on a website called coldhardflash.com. I had to use the Wayback Machine to actually read the interview, and man, the Wayback Machine has been a huge help during this video. Aaron, the interviewer, asks, "How did you come to establish this relationship with Cadbury? The chaps who sort our advertising sales, Woot Media arranged it all. They're total dancers, and seem to know what they're doing, so we let them. They act like an agency for us really, which is nice." I wanted to have a look on the old Weebls Stuff forum using the Wayback Machine to see if I could find some opinions on the old Cadbury episodes. Personally, it was around the time that I actually stopped watching. It was nothing to do with those episodes, just my life was changing at that point. So I just wanted to see, did other people like it? Unfortunately, as is often the way with the good old Wayback Machine, the forum posts were not archived, so I can only see the post titles, which gave nothing away. So I'll leave it up to you guys to decide what you think of the Goo series for yourself. If you made it this far into the video, you're probably shouting at your screams, "Dylan, why are you even talking about this? Why make a video on a Flash cartoon that began over 20 years ago?" I'm certainly no expert on the subject, but this is kind of why I'm making the video. I love Weebl and Bob, and I really wanted to learn more about it and, learn more about the man behind it. So here we are. As a kid, my friends and I would often get together on the weekend and watch Weebl and Bob for hours. Now I say watch for hours, but in reality, it was more like hang out and shoot the shit for 10 to 15 minutes while an episode loaded. Then we'd watch a 2-minute episode and repeat for hours. So really, we might watch 20 minutes worth of episodes over the span of a few hours. Ah, dial up. You will not be missed, you cruel son of a bitch. There's one memory I have that I will never forget, and that's actually saying something, because I have, the worst memory. It was a really hot day during the summer holidays, and when I say hot, I mean hot. See, I live in Australia, and if I had to guess, I'd say it would have been around 40, maybe 45 degrees Celsius that day, and my computer room had no air conditioning, just a really crappy ceiling fan. I think I would have been maybe 9 or 10 at the time, and my friends Carl and JJ came over to hang out. Shout out Carl, we've been friends for over 25 years and still going strong. Anyway, the three of us decided to spend the day watching Weebl and Bob in the computer room, rather than spending time in a nicely air-conditioned lounge room for some reason. Who knows, kids are kind of dumb. One of us remembered that heat rises, so in our genius child brains we decided to lay on the carpeted floor while we waited for each episode to load to stay cool. So there we were, laying on the floor with the curtains closed, the lights off, and the only light in the room coming from a glorious beige CRT monitor. We just spent the entire day talking about dumb kid stuff and watching Weebl and Bob from the first episode to as far as we could get with our slow internet limitations. Now there's nothing particularly amazing about this memory, but yep, I still remember it so clearly and it always makes me smile. So that, along with many other good memories watching Weebl and Bob with friends, is why I decided I need to make this video. Unfortunately though, things change. People change. Friends come and go. You drift apart. Interests change, It's just a way of life. There's no avoiding it. Hell, I would love to spend some Saturdays just laying on the floor watching cartoons with friends, but I find it really hard to justify it these days. I'm so busy, Got a full-time job, got a partner, I got pets, I just got adult responsibilities. It seems all these eventualities have had an effect on Jonti as well. Over the years, uploads of Weebl and Bob have slowed more and more. In 2012, only 4 episodes were uploaded. Then in 2013, we had no episodes at all until the end of November when 5 episodes were uploaded on the same day. And really, that would be the last time we'd get an episode of Weebl and Bob in its current iteration. Episode 180, Melons. The next upload wouldn't come until October of 2014, but this was an unreleased episode, not a new creation. And after this, so far there have been 3 episodes released to date. These 3 were the first and only episodes created in Adobe After Effects rather than Flash. These were created as Patreon rewards, but later uploaded to YouTube for everyone to see. I guess you could technically say that 4 episodes have been released since 2014. However, the 4th is more like a reimagining, or a celebration of the series as a whole, rather than a standard episode of the show. This was an incredibly bittersweet episode, released on 11th of June 2022, called 20 Years of Weebl and Bob. The episode is the only time Weebl and Bob has ever been animated in full 3D. Well, half the episode was at least. I won't spoil the episode for you. I do really recommend you go watch it yourself if you've ever been a fan of Weebl and Bob. I didn't expect it to hit me that hard, but I actually had tears in my eyes watching it. It was pretty emotional. And that's it. This is where the series lies today. dormant with no signs of resurgence. But what happened? Why did Jonti stop working on Weebl and Bob around late 2013, early 2014? Well, as far as I can see, Jonti's never really said why he shifted away from the series, but I have a hunch. On the 17th of July 2008, a video was uploaded to Weebls Stuff entitled Electro Gypsy. The description said, "A music video we made for our exciting new band Savlonic." On the 24th of July, an interview with the band was posted to Weebls Stuff. In the interview, they stated that Electro Gypsy was a song they wrote in the late 80s, so they were happy when Mr.Weebl decided he wanted to make a video for the song. In truth though, Savlonic was actually Jonti's new band, made up of Jonti performing vocals as the character Roscoe Thunderpants, his wife Sarah Darling on vocals and keyboards playing the character Evangeline Disco, friends Kate Wade on drums and backing vocals as Candy Floss, and Daniel Dobbs playing the guitar as Caspar Funk. Savlonic is a virtual band in a similar vein to Gorillaz, made up of animated characters, but written and recorded by real life people. Do I really need to specify that last part? I don't know. You get what I'm talking about anyway. In early 2014, right around the time Weebl and Bob episodes stopped being published entirely, Savlonic set up a Kickstarter to fund their first full-length studio album. There was a stretch goal included in this Kickstarter. If they were able to fund over £30,000, Jonti would animate another music video for one of the songs, which they did surpass, ending with a total of £34,768 backed. This is where I think the interest of Jonti really started to shift. Clearly he was becoming more and more invested in his music again. If you've followed his work for any length of time, it's quite clear that music has always been a huge passion of his. Now having a chance to work on music full-time with his band thanks to the successful Kickstarter, of course that was going to take up the majority of his focus. The release of Savlonic's first full album, Red, was a big success for the band as far as I can tell. Less than 2 years later in 2016, the band set up another Kickstarter for their second album. This one was even more popular, raising over £40,000. One more Kickstarter would be made in 2019 for the band's third album, which raised slightly less than album 2, ending with over £37,000 in funding, still not a small number by any means. Throughout the years, Jonti has become more and more interested in streaming on Twitch as well, where he streams nearly every day for a few hours at least. Usually he's working on his next animation or a piece of music. Occasionally there'll be a gaming session in there to mix things up. It doesn't take a genius to see that Jonti's interest, and the interest of his fans, has shifted over the years. And, unfortunately, one of the casualties in these shifts was the once beloved Weebl and Bob series. Sometimes, it's just better to let things end naturally, and to move on. I'm sure we can all think of 100 things that have just gone on for way too long and should have ended years ago, whether it's for the money, or to try and please some fans. I'm looking at you, Simpsons. If you ask me, Weebl and Bob faded away. There was no big defining moment where the series ended with a bang. No burning out in a blaze of glory. However, sometimes that's okay. Jonti never tried to push the series to continue after he found his motivation had moved in a new artistic direction. He didn't keep trying to make new episodes that he wasn't passionate about just to keep the series going. Sometimes, the best way to go out is to quietly leave, while giving yourself room to come back if you ever do desire, rather than closing that door permanently. Personally, I'm glad that Weebl and Bob ended the way it did. I'm glad that Jonti's moved on with his life and is doing things that make him happy. At least, I hope that's the case, because what's the point if you're not happy? I'm glad that Weebl and Bob didn't become some awful shell of its former self just because people wanted it to stick around. Sometimes, it's better to just end. Alright, thanks for watching guys, that's the end of the video. This is the first video I've done in this style and I really enjoyed making it. I would love to make some more on this style. I've already got a few ideas lined up and a couple of scripts half written, but if there's anything you can think of that you'd like a video on, let me know. It doesn't have to be Flash cartoon related, you know, I don't have a direction for this channel yet. I'm feeling it out, seeing what I enjoy making, so throw out any ideas you have, I'd love to hear it. Alright guys, I'm gonna go lay on the floor in the dark and watch Weebl and Bob for a few hours. See you later.